Okay, quick question. How many gear checks should you do before each jump? If you say 1, you're wrong. If you say 2, you're also wrong. You need to be doing at least 3 gear checks before each and every jump. If we haven't met before, my name is Christina. I'm with Skydive Fundamentals, and this video is going to take you through the gear checks that you need to be doing before each and every jump. So starting in category D of AFF training, that's when you as a student start to move towards doing your own gear checks. You need at least 3 separate gear checks, and if you decide to skip any of those, well, you're kind of taking a chance and rolling the dice there. Today, we're going to break down how to do gear checks and when, and this is going to be the system that catches those problems before they can become emergencies. So whether you're looking to get your coach rating and you just want to kind of brush up on gear check techniques, or you are a student that is starting to do your own gear checks, this is going to be the video for you. And with that, let's get started. Okay, so we're going to start with the most thorough gear check you're going to do, and that's going to be your first gear check, which is done before you ever put your rig on. So USPA recommends that we start at the top and work our way to the bottom, starting with the back of the rig first before switching around to the front of the rig. So that's what I'm going to do here. And the first thing that I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to find my AED and make sure that it is turned on and to the correct setting. So for me, my AED is found up here. Currently, it's not on, so I would turn it on, and then I would make sure that it is at the setting that I prefer, because some manufacturers of AEDs allow you to select the mode. So if you have that type of AED, make sure that the proper mode is selected for you. Once I've done that, then I'm going to be taking a look at my reserve closing pin and the loop as well. So I want to check to see that my closing loop is in good condition. It's not fraying at all. I want to make sure that my reserve pin is well seated in that loop. It's not about to be pulled out. I want to check that the seal is still here, and that seal is simply put on by a rigger, and it tells you that nothing has been tampered with since it was sealed by that rigger from the last time that the reserve has been repacked. The other thing that I want to do, if you have an RSL and if you have a MARD, you also want to just quickly check to make sure that the cutaway cable is going, passing through that Collins lanyard. If you don't know what a MARD is, or you're not sure if your equipment contains a MARD, we've got a video for you, but also just ask an instructor or ask a rigger. So once this looks okay, I'm going to close this back up. And then I'm going to move on down to my main closing pin. So very similar thing, I'm going to check to make sure that my closing loop is in good condition still, it's not too frayed or worn, and that my closing pin is fully seated. Now, different manufacturers have different recommendations for how your bridle and your main closing pin should look, so make sure that you know for that particular type of manufacturer what they suggest you do. And then I also just want to make sure that my pilot chute bridle, which is tucked away down here, I'm pulling it out right now, that is all just tucked up and there are no snag hazards there. So I'm going to close that up, and I like to feel with my fingers here, just making sure that the bridle is going from my main closing pin over to where my pilot chute handle is here. So different types of pilot chute handles. This is just what mine looks like, and you just want to make sure that there's very little material that you can see from your pilot chute, and everything is just nice and neat and tucked away so that there are no snag hazards there. So one thing that usually is not super easy to see at this point is knowing, is my reserve in date? So if this is your own personal gear, you probably have a pretty good idea as to when your reserve was last repacked. But if you're a student or you're using rental gear, a lot of times it's not easy to find that reserve data card. Find out from your instructor or from whoever hands out the rental gear to make sure that that particular rig is in date. A lot of DZs have different systems that they use to keep track of when their rigs are due for a repack. So that is the back. Now we're going to come around to the front. And again, like I said, USPA recommends that we start at the top and work our way to the bottom. It's really important to be methodical. Another way that I've also seen people do good gear checks is by starting on one leg strap, coming around up and over and down to the other leg strap. And that's going to work as well. Just make sure that you're always doing your gear checks in the exact same manner every single time. Don't allow yourself to get interrupted. So for the front, if we're working top down, first thing we're going to do is we're going to be looking at our 3 rings to make sure that they are assembled properly. So we want to be looking for metal, fabric, metal, and the last bit of fabric is that white loop here. You could think about that the 3 rings, that only one ring passes through one other ring. I've heard a lot of people say, oh, just look to make sure it looks like a snowman. I don't like using that because it is quite possible to misroute your 3 rings, and if you pull everything up tight enough, you still kind of get that snowman shape. So try not to use that. It's not as good as really thinking about, okay, metal, fabric, metal, fabric, metal, fabric. And then a lot of times I see people forgetting to check the back. So once you flip the riser around, you should see that that white loop passes through the metal grommet here first, and then the cable goes through. The excess of the cable is usually stowed up here in the risers. In case that cable is out for some reason, we'd want to tuck that away. And we're going to check the same thing on this side, that we've got metal, fabric, metal, fabric, metal, fabric. The loop comes around through the back, passes through this metal grommet first, and then the closing loop goes through. The other thing that we can see in this area is if you've got an RSL, which I hope you do, the RSL attaches to its own ring on the side. It is not attached to the 3 rings at all. It has its own separate ring. So make sure that your RSL is actually attached where it's supposed to be. Now, moving further down, we're going to start checking our harness for wear and tear. Every jump beforehand, we really just want to give a quick glance over, make sure that we don't see any nicks or damage that we're concerned about. If there is anything that we see, best thing to do would be to ask a rigger if it's something that you need to be concerned about, or if it is just fine to jump. We're coming down to our handles now. And again, my reserve handle is a pillow type, but you may also have a D-ring. We want to make sure that our handles are fully seated and Velcroed. The thing with the reserve D-ring, a lot of times, especially that bottom corner, wants to come out. So I like to put my one hand across the side, make sure I'm pushing it all the way in, while I just double check that the Velcro is fully seated. So coming down further, still checking the harness for any wear that I might see, coming to the leg straps, checking to make sure that my leg straps are properly routed while I'm here. You want to make sure that you see the metal as well. That's going to tell you that has been routed properly. And again, still just looking for any wear that we may see. If there is anything on your rig that you are not sure what it is, again, make sure you ask an instructor or ask a rigger to clear up any confusion that you have. So now I have fully checked my rig that I'm going to be wearing, but there's other things that I'm going to be wearing too, which I don't have with me right now, but USPA gives us SHAGG. So S stands for shoes. Do I have the correct shoes? Are they on tight enough? H is going to be helmet. Do I have the correct helmet size? And if it has a chin strap, you want to make sure that your chin strap is snug enough so that it cannot pass over your chin, but you also don't want to be cutting off your circulation as well. So find a good length for that chin strap if you have one. A in SHAGG stands for altimeter. So do I have my altimeter? That's a really easy one to leave behind. And when I'm thinking about my altimeter, I want to make sure that it is oriented properly. A lot of times digital altimeters, when they're on 0, it can be difficult to figure that out. So make sure you actually look at it and make sure that the words are reading the way they are supposed to and that it's not just flipped upside down. If it is an analog altimeter, do I need to 0 it? So make sure if it's digital, it's on. You see a 0 reading. If it's analog, that you turn the dial so that it does read 0 at that point. Finally, we have the 2 Gs. So one stands for goggles or whatever you're going to use if you've got a full face helmet, right? Do I need to make sure that that is cleaned up? If I have got goggles, are they clean and ready to go? And G, right now it's wintertime in Florida, so I might actually think about wearing gloves. And if I'm going to wear gloves, do I have my gloves? Do I maybe need to do some extra practice touches because it's been a while since I've put gloves on, that kind of thing. So SHAGG is the acronym, stands for shoes, helmet, altimeter, goggles, gloves. And the last thing that SHAGG doesn't cover is my jumpsuit. Am I wearing a jumpsuit? Is it suitable for the people that I'm jumping with? And if I'm not wearing a jumpsuit, I really want to think about what might happen with my clothing. Are there pockets that my emergency handles may accidentally go into? Is my shirt going to be flying up and possibly covering my emergency handles? Do I have a jacket on because it's so cold and I have to worry about a hood that might get in the way of my risers, for example? So wearing a jumpsuit a lot of times deals with those other problems, but if you've decided you're not going to be wearing a jumpsuit, you really need to think through what is with your own clothes that you're wearing that might cause issues and take care of that. So that is our very first gear check. It's going to be the most thorough gear check that you do. So definitely don't skip it, especially if you're using rental gear, because we all know, right, the most abused gear on a drop zone is going to be rental gear. Now that we have our gear on, and before we get onto the plane, it's going to be our second gear check. Now this cannot be quite as thorough because, again, we've got our gear on. What are the things that we're going to check? We're going to use what is called the check of threes. So the first part of the check of threes is checking to make sure that your 3 rings are routed properly, as well as that your RSL is not on your 3 rings, but it's on its own separate ring. And then we're going to check our 3 points of harness. So we've got our chest strap, make sure that that's routed properly and it's the correct length, and as well as our leg straps, that they're both even, correct length, not too tight and not too loose. And then finally, we're going to check our 3 handles. So we're going to start with our main handle, make sure that we can reach it, it's not accidentally tucked in. And then we're going to check our emergency handle. So we're going to look and touch our cutaway and then our reserve. So once we've done that, that's the end of our check of threes. If you are a student and you are not used to doing gear checks, you want to give yourself a little bit extra time so that you can go through that thorough first gear check as well as your second gear check before you need to board the plane. And don't forget, we've got our personal accessories too. And those are super easy to leave behind. So this is going to, again, be SHAGG. Do I have my shoes? Do I have my helmet? My altimeter? Is it actually on? Do I have my goggles? And do I have gloves if I need that? So your third gear check is also going to be another check of threes. And this is going to be just a few minutes before exiting the aircraft. Probably about 1,500 feet or so before my exit altitude, I want to be doing my last gear check. So same thing, checking the 3 rings that they're properly routed. I want to be checking my chest strap and my leg straps one more time. And I want to be thinking about my 3 handles. So I've got my main handle and then my emergency handles that I want to be checking as well. If I've been moving around a lot in the plane or other people have been moving around a lot and I'm worried about my pins, or just in general I'm worried about my pins, I can ask somebody to give me a pin check. If we want a pin check or we need to give somebody else a pin check, we're going to start with checking out the reserve pin, making sure everything is looking good there, and putting this back. And then we're going to move down to the main pin, making sure that everything there looks good. And technically that's the end of the pin check, but I actually like to just kind of check out the pilot chute handle as well and make sure that it is where it is supposed to be. And if you're a student and somebody has just asked you to give them a pin check and you don't feel comfortable or confident yet doing that, just let them know that you don't have a whole lot of experience and it's probably better to ask somebody else. So after you've done your third gear check, now is the time to actually look around at who's sitting next to you and look at their equipment. Even if you're a student that only has a few jumps, I would prefer, if you see something that is weird on my gear, go ahead and tell me, because the worst thing that happens is you just give me an opportunity to double check my gear again. And maybe everything is fine. But if you think that there might be something wrong, please, please say something. As a community, we need to keep each other safe. Check your gear, check your neighbor's gear, and let's keep everyone safe. Let's do a quick recap of everything that we've covered. So there should be at least 3 gear checks. first one is going to be the most thorough one before you even put the rig on. So again, USPA suggests that you check from top to bottom, doing the back first and then flipping around and doing the front. But the main thing here with all of your gear checks is to be methodical. Find something that works for you and do it the same way every single time. And if for some reason you get distracted, somebody comes up to try to talk to you when you're in the middle of your gear check, start over. So that's your first gear check, most thorough one. And then the next two gear checks are going to be before you get onto the plane and before you exit the plane. And those are going to be your check of threes. So checking your 3 rings and your RSL as well. Your 3 points of attachment, so your chest strap and your 2 leg straps. And then finally your 3 handles. So your main deployment handle and then your emergency handles. That's your cutaway and your reserve handle as well. If you're worried about your pins, once you've got your rig on, remember you can always ask somebody to give you a pin check. So now I really want you to think about how many times do you check your gear? Because here's what I see at drop zones all the time. People will skip the first gear check, especially if it's their own equipment, because they're like, you know what? I just packed this. I know everything is fine. People will skip the second gear check because they're like, you know what? I just did my first equipment check and that was just a few minutes ago. And then people will also skip the gear check in the plane. And a lot of times it's because we want to just sit there and be like, hey, have a good jump, have a good jump. And we have totally forgotten to do our last equipment check. And that's exactly how preventable incidents can happen. My next video is actually going to be about the most common mistakes that I see. So if you haven't already, hit subscribe so that you don't miss out on that video. And if you'd like, we actually have a whole playlist about gear. So check it out and do your gear checks.